Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Tad Williams' short story called The Happiest Dead Boy in the World, which was taken from his OtherLand series, which I haven't read. I do have the series of books, but I haven't read them yet. I plan on doing that at some point. But before we go into this story, again, as always, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when new videos come on up, and leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you, and I always respond back. And spread the word. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your support. So, going into OtherLand, going off of the introduction of the story, and I like this anthology for giving you that. OtherLand is basically a network, and there's a whole history of the network that I'm not going to really get into because you get into that when you read the series of books, and I'll get into that then. But all these different networks, I mean, there's stuff from like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, which I thought was so cool that he worked in, to, sort of like Disney and, anything that like we could think of that we have in our world is in this network. But at some point late into the series, there's this sort of battle over who's going to take the network and what is it going to be used for. That's the thing that nobody really seems to know. The network is secret. And there's a 14-year-old boy who has a disease that it makes him age super, super fast. So he's basically, when you have that disease, you die by the time you are a teenager. He dies at the age of 14, but, and this is where I think it's kind of cool too, is he's still alive in the network. And so he basically will be living, even though his body is dead. You could almost say his spirit is living within the network and will be alive forever. And where exactly does he live? Oliver Gardner. Where does he live? He lives by Elrond, in the land of the elves. Lord of the Rings. The opening characters are like, he comes off as Tharagon, even though Aragorn's actually really there. But you have another character who is a hobbit with a really funky, weird name too. And it's just kind of cool how Tad sort of brings all these different ideas together. And basically, Oliver is the ranger of the network. He is basically going through and doing everything, looking after everything. You could say he's probably the most powerful person, if you can even say person at all, in terms of there being a network, because I mean, these aren't real people. I'm sorry, Orlando. So Orlando is pretty much like the most powerful, I guess we could say most powerful being maybe on this network. So what's the main point of the story? What's Tad trying to get onto? And there is a point where there is a shadow of a former character in the network who comes to him, and she doesn't recognize him. So he plays kind of stupid, and he goes by his network name. He doesn't use his real name because nobody knows his real name, even though this woman does. And that takes him aback. And she basically tells him, I'm pregnant with his child, with Orlando's child, meaning his Orlando standing there. And it's kind of like, what, hey, wait, I've never been with this woman. I don't get it. And then there's a society spokesman who has 2 women that level charges against him, that he's responsible for their pregnancies. And he says that, no, there's one that I can't stand. So I'm even appalled at the fact that you would even think I would do anything with that one. But and then Orlando encounters a second woman that looks just like the first, who basically says the same thing. So the mystery is, what's going on here? And the theme is basically, reality is not always what it seems to be. Life has its ways of making itself happen. And it's all within this network, that the network is repopulating itself. They figure out the mystery. Even though there was no, as Orlando said, there's no old-fashioned way being done. It's the network that's taking the material, or I guess the data of Orlando, and giving it to the data of the shadows. That way you're getting the best data, the most powerful data. And Orlando pretty much is like, well, we're going to have to disable this or something, or else, because we're going to have, we're going to have new kids going all over the place, and it's just going to be a mess. I mean, as it is, by the time I think he stops, I think he tells his parents on the network that they're going to be grandparents 40, maybe 50 times over. So by the time they figure it out, it hasn't been stopped that much, or as quickly as he probably would have liked it to be. So, in a nutshell, I mean, that's the story. And it takes place all within a network. It's not a real world. That's why it's called OtherWorld. That's the name of the network, OtherWorld. And when I first started reading it, I was like, cool. Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, he's using that. That's cool, but I don't, I don't like when authors really want to further a story using somebody else. But that being said, Tad Williams doesn't do that here. Yes, Orlando lives in the same village as Elrond in Middle Earth for the Lord of the Rings, but that's not the setting of the story, and that's not the bulk of the story. So once we got past that, it's like, okay, we're moving, we're doing, and the writing, I have to say, is really good, and there's a sense of humor there that, I'm really kind of anxious to read the books, and there's a lot of stuff I would have to skip to get to that. So I don't know. I'm going to have my, my patient side kick in. But I thought the writing style was good. That there's a sense of humor in there, some tongue-in-cheek type of stuff. The story was good. I think, it could have been maybe a little stronger. But again, considering I haven't read the actual series, this takes place after the original series. So the fact I haven't read the original series could also have something to do with that. But even with that being the case, I would still give this story probably a 4.7, which is one of the highest, really, out of this anthology. I think the highest overall was probably the Anne McCaffrey one, which you can go back and check that in the whole Pern series. I think that one was like a 4.8, maybe a little higher even, where she talks about, what happens between, which I always thought was kind of cool. So far, this is the highest besides the Anne McCaffrey. This is the highest one rated out of the Legends 2 Shadows, Gods, and Demons anthology. So far, I'm liking it. I only have, I think, a couple more to go. And then it's done, and I'm going to review those stories when I get done with those and put them on up, so you can check them out. So, yeah, 4.7, I'll give it, and recommend it. If you can find it electronically or, find the book cheap, it's a good pickup, definitely. So, with that, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the videos, what you think of the stories that I'm reading and reviewing, what you think I should read and review. I love hearing from you, and I always respond. And spread the word. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. I love talking about the books that I read. I don't get a chance to talk to a lot of people about the stuff that I read because they don't necessarily read the same stuff. So for me to do this and to reach anybody here is really cool for me. So with that, again, I appreciate all your support. And as always, until next time, keep YouTube literate, and God bless.